The top stories tonight in Y News. In the midst of tensions over U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's high-stakes trip to Taiwan that enraged China, Southeast Asia nations, including the Philippines, call for maximum restraint and warn of unpredictable consequences.
A committee headed by the Department of the Interior and local government has been assembled to look into problems brought by the Mandanas-Garcia ruling of the Supreme Court.
The Department of Agriculture has distributed 6.4 million pesos worth of hybrid and inbred rice seeds to farmers nationwide.
In first public appearance, former President Rodrigo Duterte paid his last respects to former President Fidel Ramos, while President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. remembers FVR as a symbol of stability.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Thursday, August 4, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am Harleen Delgado.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts. I am William Theo.
First in the news. After U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made good on her promise to visit in Taiwan, China is now flexing its military muscles around the island territory. Southeast Asia nations, on the other hand, are worried if China retaliates against Taiwan and the U.S. Beverly Saison will tell us why.
U.S.-China's already strained relations has gone for the worse after U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's recent visit to Taiwan. Already, China is showing its dismay with its announcement of new live-fire drills within 6 locations around Taiwan. Water and space routes are now restricted because of the military drill anticipation, while Southeast Asian leaders are nervously anticipating China's reaction. The foreign ministers of the group of 7 nations called on China to resolve tension around the Taiwan Strait in a peaceful manner. Taiwan said China's actions are a challenge to international order. According to some Southeast Asian diplomatic experts, China has no choice but to react, although it does not want to start a World War III against the U.S. Governments from ASEAN nations will be very cautious in its statements in fear of China's reaction. The Philippines stresses the importance of avoiding miscalculations between China and U.S. On the other hand, Indonesia calls for all parties to refrain from further provocations that may worsen the situations. Speaker Pelosi is second in line in the presidency and is considered equal with U.S. President Joe Biden, being the leader of the legislative branch of government. Her Taiwan visit was viewed in Beijing as an infringement of its sovereignty by a foreign power. China considers Taiwan as a renegade province and considers military actions if necessary to bring the island territory back. Beverly Saison, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The top foreign ministers of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, expressed concern over the rising China-Taiwan tensions. In a statement, they said the recent development could destabilize the region and eventually could lead to serious confrontation, open conflicts, and unpredictable consequences among major powers. The ASEAN calls for maximum restraint, refrain from provocative action, and upholding the principles in the United Nations Charter. They call on all parties to act together, adding that the association is ready to facilitate a peaceful dialogue to de-escalate tension and safeguard peace and security in the Southeast Asian region. The Department of Foreign Affairs, meanwhile, also expressed concern over the rising tensions in the Taiwan Strait. The agency says the Philippines adheres to the One China policy and urges restraint to all parties, emphasizing that diplomacy and dialogue must prevail.
A committee headed by the Departments of the Interior and Local Government has been assembled by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to look into problems brought by the Mandanas-Garcia ruling of the Supreme Court. Nelma Ribohok will tell us the details live. Yes, Nell?
Arlene, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. said the DILG-led team will examine issues of devolution and decentralization of the functions of the local and national governments. The original idea, according to the President, was to use the additional internal revenue allocation for the 4th, 5th, and 6th class provinces or local government units and to help provinces that have hospitals but lack funding. He further stated that the remainder of the ERA will be distributed in accordance with the LGU-specific provisions of the local government code. However, according to PBBM, it is hard to apply the decision in some cities. As a result, the decision on how to apportion the money that is appropriated was left to the discretion of local executives. The President claims that they are specifically examining what belongs to the local government and what does not. The President will also consider the tasks assigned to local government that remain unfinished due to a lack of new resources or items. The President mentioned the land use plan, whose implementation is difficult for some LGUs due to a lack of funding and qualified personnel, and suggested that the work be given to the national government. The Mandanas-Garcia ruling fully transfers or devolves the delivery of basic services to LGUs, stemming from a 2013 petition made by Governor Mandanas and former Bataan Governor Enrique Garcia Jr. The SC affirmed the ruling in 2018, giving the LGUs a just share of all national taxes collected, and not only from the Bureau of Internal Revenue, effective 2022. That is our update. Back to you, Harleen.
Thank you, Nel Maribohok, reporting live.
Meanwhile, the creation of its own permanent residence will be a top priority for the office of the Vice President. Janice Inhente will tell us why.
Attorney Reynold Monsayak, the spokesperson for Vice President Sara Duterte, explains why a permanent OVP residence is more practical. Monsayak said that this could save the government money in the long run rather than leasing venues.
Isa nga ho yan sa priority ng Office of the Vice President, yung magkaroon na ng opisyal na permanenteng opisina, yung tanggapan ng pangalawang Pangulo. Yung nakikita ho nating ibang reaksyon, nagsasabi, ba't uunahin yan, dagdag gastos lang. Pero kapag inaral pong mabuti, mas napapamahal ang gobyerno sa tuwing umuupa sila kasi wala pang permanenteng tanggapan or opisina ang Office of the Vice President. So in the long run, mas makakamura po talaga kung hindi na mag-iisip kung saan rerenta yung opisina ng ating Vice President.
According to Monsayak, they are now considering several locations. The OVP spokesperson, however, said that no budget had yet been proposed for the structure and that everything would depend on its final location and design.
Yung budget po kasi magdedepende yan sa magiging final location. Siyempre, doon din sa magiging plano doon sa building, gaano kataas, ilang square meters ba yung lawak. So wala pa hong mga detalye tungkol doon sa magkano mismo yung kakailanganin.
Representative Tan Tambot of the Kusug-Tausug Party List filed House Bill 2698 on Wednesday, which would establish a Vice President's office residence. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, the biggest blow to the Al-Qaeda militant group came after the United States assassinated its leader, which prompted high-level talks of Taliban leaders. Paul Gatchalian gives us the details live. Yes, Paul, go ahead.
Mariel, top Taliban leaders in Afghanistan were discussing how to respond to a U.S. drone strike in Kabul that the U.S. said killed Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri. Reuters reported quoting 3 sources in the group. U.S. officials confirmed the death of the Al-Qaeda leader last Saturday after U.S. drones launched 2 Hellfire missiles at him as he stood in his hideout's balcony. The Taliban has yet to confirm Zawahiri's death, though they did confirm the drone strike, stating that the house which Zawahiri used as a hideout was empty. Zawahiri was an Egyptian doctor and America's most wanted target as he worked closely with Osama bin Laden in plotting the war against the US and together planned the 9/11 attack. His death in Kabul raises questions about whether he received sanctuary from the Taliban. As part of a 2020 agreement on the withdrawal of US-led forces in Afghanistan, the militant group assured the United States that they would not harbor other terrorist groups. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the Taliban had grossly violated the agreement by hosting and sheltering Zawahiri. Back to you, Mariel.
Thank you, Paul Gatchalian, for that live report. The United States Federal Aviation Administration issued an airworthiness directive for all Boeing 777 airplanes. Nerissa Dando will tell us why live. Yes, Nerissa, good evening.
Good evening, Mariel. U.S. FAA's directive comes over safety concerns on Boeing 777 airplanes due to corrosion causing high electrical resistance within the airplane's gas suppression sensor. Gas suppression function, Mariel, is a non-essential feature in the airplane, only slightly improves ride quality during sidewind gusts at low air speeds. These functions must be disabled within 3 months or prior to the plane reaching a total of 75,000 flight hours. To address the unsafe condition of the product, the airworthiness directive requires Boeing to disconnect the connectors and to cover and store the wires attached to the affected modules. The FAA added that Boeing is currently developing a modification to address the module's unsafe condition. Once the modification is approved, the FAA may issue another rule. This directive covers 279 U.S. registered Boeing 777 airplanes and is effective immediately. So far, Mariel, Boeing has not made a comment on the directive issued. Mariel?
Thank you, Nerissa Dando, reporting live. We'll share more global stories with you later, but for now, back to you, William.
Thank you, Mariel. For those watching our live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook. To boost farm productivity and increase financial income, the Department of Agriculture, DA, has distributed 6.4 million pesos worth of rice seeds to farmers nationwide. DA Assistant Secretary for Operations Arlen de Mesa in a statement said distributed hybrid and inbred rice seeds will cover 582,780 hectares of farmland through the National Rice Program. Additionally, farmers may avail of fertilizer vouchers worth up to 2,262 pesos per hectare planted with hybrid seeds and 1,131 pesos per hectare planted with inbred rice seeds. The DA has since encouraged farmers to plant hybrid rice since it yields more than inbred rice.
The National Commission of Senior Citizens, or NCSC, vows to simplify the processes and requirements for eligible indigent senior citizens for their monthly social pension. Republic Act number 11916 has lapsed into law, increasing the monthly social pension of indigent senior citizens from 500 pesos to 1,000 pesos. NCSC Chairperson Franklin Quijano says they are preparing for the transition and assures that they are capable of implementing the law. Under the measure, the mandate for the distribution of social pension has been transferred from the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, to the NCSC.
So we are one with the voice of the legislators na wag naman gawing komplikado. But there has to be some basis for determining yung bakit ang isang senior citizen ay indigent. And I guess this basic minimum requirements must be met.
Quijano says 50 billion pesos is needed to fund the program. For its part, the Department of Budget and Management vows to look for its funding. In a statement, Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman says they will coordinate with the DSWD and NCSC for the crafting of the implementing rules and regulations of the law, which will serve as the guidelines for its proper implementation.
House of Representatives Speaker Martin Romualdez hopes that some of the priority bills mentioned by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. during his State of the Nation address would be approved by the lower chamber of Congress before the year ends. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
House Speaker Martin Romualdez said that most of the bills mentioned by the President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. are beneficial for the country's economic recovery. During his speech before the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry earlier today, he assured that Congress is in line with the President's plans for the country. This includes boosting the economy as well as the country's trade and commerce. Speaker Romualdez outlined the economic legislative agenda of the 19th Congress. He also mentioned that the House already adopted House Concurrent Resolution Number 2, which expressed the lower chamber's support to the medium-term fiscal framework of the Marcos administration. The MTFF aims to generate more quality jobs as well as reduce poverty by improving the country's economy. Meanwhile, the Speaker also assured the business sector that the House of Representatives would consult businessmen when crafting laws related to commerce and industry. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Department of Transportation considers additional bus stations at the EDSA carousel. The agency also announced that the free bus rides will be extended until December 2022. Let's find out why from Asher Kadapan Jr.
The Department of Transportation aims to provide convenience and safety to commuters, among others. With this, the agency opens 2 more bus stations for EDSA Carousel route. These are located in the corner of Ross Boulevard and Taft Avenue. But Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista mulls over constructing more bus stations along the said route. This primarily includes another bus station in EDSA Magallanes.
Ang iniisip natin if we can add more median stops, gagawin po natin yan, no? Kasi ngayon we have only 13 median stops, no? But with the opening of these 2 bus stops, magiging 15 na po dito sa ating EDSA busway, no?
The DOTR chief also affirms the free ride program will continue in EDSA Carousel until December 31, 2022. Secretary Bautista confirms the Department of Budget and Management already approved the fund for the extension of the free ride program.
Alam niyo po yung libreng sakay, ito po ay pinapa-extend ng ating presidente para makatulong sa ating mga mananakay, lalong-lalo na yung mga naapektuhan ng pandemya, no?
Earlier, Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board Chairperson Cheloy Garafil revealed they only have funds to sustain the program until September 6. For the program to continue until the end of the year, the LTFRB official says they need 1.4 billion pesos. The DOTR also assures that the LTFRB is continuously updating the billing with the bus operators to ensure enough fleet in the EDSA carousel. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The European Medicines Agency is recommending Novavax to carry warning labels on their COVID-19 vaccines. Joselito Liquido will tell us why live. Yes, Joselito?
Good evening, Marielle. Due to a few reported cases of severe allergic reactions leading to heart complications, the European Medicines Agency, or EMA, is recommending Novavax COVID-19 vaccine to carry a warning, particularly on 2 types of heart inflammation. According to EMA, the 2 heart conditions, myocarditis and pericarditis, should be listed as new side effects of Nuvaxovid. Myocarditis and pericarditis were previously flagged by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration as rare side effects of the vaccine and were mostly seen in young men. Novavax said that there were no concerns on heart inflammations raised during the clinical trials and that more data would be gathered. However, they will work with the relevant regulators to ensure consistency in their product information. Since its launch in December 2021, 250,000 doses of Nuvaxovid were so far administered in Europe. Riel?
Thank you, Joselito Liquido, for that live report. Following
Following a dry and parched summer over most of Europe, the Dutch government announced a water shortage situation in the Netherlands. As temperatures soared last month, waters that are streaming into the country's rivers lessened, with a rise in fish death and algae blooms that resulted from the groundwater level sinking. Minister of Infrastructure and Agriculture Mark Harbour stated that the water shortage is already causing a negative effect on shipping and agriculture in particular. Authorities have recently imposed limits on farmers watering their crops with the surface water and are calling out for Dutch people to conserve water. Although authorities have said that drinking water supplies are now not at risk or affected, action is not currently necessary but is anticipated later this month. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Maria Latoza reporting live from Perth, Australia. Good evening.
The request of the attorneys for Dr. Chow Tiao Yumol to undergo a mental health examination was approved by the Quezon City Regional Trial Court Branch 98. The Furigay family's attorney Quirino Esguerra, stated that the Yumol case was postponed until September 16. This after Yumol's lawyer requested the court for his client to be checked by a medical expert because he was displaying signs of having an unsound mind. According to Attorney Esguerra, the court will assign a physician from the National Center for Mental Health to examine Yumol. Yumol is facing 3 murder charges and 1 charge of frustrated murder, with the deaths of former Lamitan Mayor Rose Furigay and 2 other individuals.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte stresses that the International Criminal Court, or ICC, has no jurisdiction over the Philippines. Duterte, however, refused to react over the decision of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. not to rejoin the ICC. Dante Amento tells us why live. Yes, Dante?
Good evening, Harleen. Former President Rodrigo Duterte asserts his position that he will not face the International Criminal Court, or ICC, and its foreign judges. Former President Duterte would only permit this in the event of a complaint lodged against him in our local courts.
If I will be prosecuted, it will be a prosecutor who is a Filipino. If I have to be judged, it will be a Filipino judge. And if I go to prison, I should go to Muntinlupa. Nobody but nobody.
Because the agreement the Philippines and the ICC signed under the Rome Statute was never published, Duterte added, the ICC has no jurisdiction over the Philippines.
Ang akin is, ako'y Pilipino at wala silang jurisdiction. They never acquired jurisdiction because yung Rome Agreement was never published in the official gazette. Especially the laws the Constitution required, especially the penal law, which forms part of the law of the land. You must publish it. Ang ginawa nila, pinirmahan ni Erap, dinala doon sa Congress, tapos diniretso nila appended it in the Rome Agreement without returning it to me because I have to order the Bureau of Printing to publish it in the official gazette.
Former President Duterte is the primary respondent of several complaints before the ICC over his administration's war on drugs and even during his term as the mayor of Davao City. Meanwhile, the former chief executive has likewise declined to comment on President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s decision not to rejoin the ICC. Being a citizen, he would like to remain silent on the subject. And that's our latest live from Quezon City. Back to you, Harleen.
Thank you, Dante Amento, reporting live.
The wake of former President Fidel Ramos was open today, but not for the public yet. The late president was honored by a number of officials for his service to the country as a public servant. Dante Amento has the story.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. was among those who visited the wake of former President Fidel Ramos at the Heritage Park in Taguig City. PBBM has directly extended condolences to the family of the former chief executive. FBR, in the view of President Marcos Jr., is a symbol of stability.
I just came to, of course, offer my condolences to the family, to the former president's wife. You also must remember that we are related with FBR, and so it is also a family event, the loss of FBR. I just reminded Mrs. Ramos on how FBR, when he became president, was a symbol of stability after all the tumultuous events of 1986. When he came into the presidency, he brought calm and he brought stability to our country.
FBR will be remembered by Filipinos as a good public servant, PBBM said, and he would live on in their memories.
And for that, we will always be grateful to him and for all his service all throughout his life as a soldier and as a public servant. And for that, we clearly have suffered a loss for our country. But the memories of him will be good because of all the good work he did for the Philippines.
In his first public appearance, former President Rodrigo Duterte recalled his unforgettable memory with FBR.
So he was the first one who pushed me to run, and the first one to contribute the money. That is the fondest memory.
Former lawmakers meanwhile said that Ramos was a workaholic and a strict leader at the same time.
He worked with us. Siguro yun ang isa sa magandang pwedeng gayahin ng ating mga political leaders. Shed off the political colors when it comes to for the good of the country.
Walang mga favoritism so basta ang kanyang mga decision always based on the reality of the facts.
He was a military man before and he was very strict, but he was always very accommodating to everyone.
The visiting hours for government officials tomorrow will begin at 7 in the morning and go until 2:30 in the afternoon. The Heritage Park will also allow visits from members of the diplomatic corps, business community, and civil society organizations. The late president's state funeral is set for Tuesday, August 9 at the Libingan ng mga Bayani. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Our Kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid wars, disasters, and outbreaks, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of 1 John, chapter 3, verse 20, it says, "For if our heart condemn us, God is greater than our heart, and knoweth all things." And those are the reasons behind the news, August 4, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Harleen Delgado.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.